Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. This is the McDermott Report. We're broadcasting live 8 p.m. Eastern weeknights, Monday through Thursdays. The McDermott Report. Friday is Google Plus Week. Joining me on this Hurricane Monday is Emily Williams. Emily, welcome.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
That's our first story, hurricane or hype. I guess it's our first story. We got a lot of other political stuff and newsy stuff and fun stuff to talk about, but I guess we'll bust this out at the risk of losing any viewers who are hurricaned out after all the warnings. I know that there were some funny things going into it. Chris Christie tweeted, "Get the hell off the beach," and that got a little play. And folks were warning everyone, you know, this is the big one. And even before it hit, I began to see things from folks like Jeff Jarvis saying, you know, if they say everything is the big one, then they lose credibility. And then when it hit, there were questions from, I think one meteorologist even questioned whether it met the grounds for even a Category 1 hurricane. Is everyone gun-shy because of Katrina? What's the deal?
Well, I think that was definitely a factor in how much play this got. It was right on the anniversary of Katrina, and there was a lot of criticism there that the people on the ground didn't react enough or give enough warning or take the hurricanes seriously enough. So I think that, you know, an overreaction is better than an underreaction, certainly. And I think it's also important to state that, you know, there are places that did get a lot of flooding and a lot of damage. I mean, the damage they're estimating is going to be in the billions of dollars. But, of course, what we're hearing about in the press is the fact that New York City didn't get hit as hard as they thought it was going to. And everyone's mad at Bloomberg as a result for evacuating so many people. And I really think that, you know, if the storm had reacted any differently and all the flooding that's going on in Vermont was going on in New York City, there would, of course, be a lot more lives lost. So it's hard to criticize, you know, a politician for making a decision like that when, you know, they don't control the weather. And the forecasters were saying that it was going to be bad. So, you know,
well, the opposite, though, is remember after the BP oil disaster when you had politicians going out to seafood places, eating seafood to show that they weren't going to die. And my attitude was, there's no way in hell I'm going to eat seafood right after that from that area. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just, I question the safety of it. So you can go, I mean, there are either extremes here, and they're trying, but I mean, who would want to encourage people to go surfing right before a hurricane, you know? And that's an extreme example. But so, I mean, I guess they erred on the side of safety, but then you have the boy who cried wolf scenario where folks will ignore warnings. And then some of these hysterical weather folks who were out there, I guess the one guy was covered in raw sewage and said it didn't taste all that hot. You know, that's an assignment for you. Next time we have flooding, next time the James River floods, I'm going to send you out to be an embedded journalist and cover that. We are in the chat room at justin.tv if you want to check that out. We're responding. We're responding to anyone who says anything, unless it's not respondable. But okay, so hurricane or hype, probably a little bit of hype, but who can blame them, I suppose. All right, now Libya. I guess one of the sons is killed, but then they were both captured, but then not captured, and then the family is in I don't know what state now. They said what country now they're in. Zimbabwe, in Harare, probably guests of Mr. Mugabe, what country are they in? Do we know? Where he says he's still in Libya, but he hasn't said anything in 3 days. Where in the world is Muammar Gaddafi?
I think the Post reported today, actually tonight at 6:30, so not that long ago, that he's in Algeria. Supposedly, I
think the wife and the unkilled kids are there, right? But he is.
Oh yeah, nope, that's right. I'm not sure where he is actually.
But anyway, you know, this is interesting because it seems like the rebels have taken over the country, and they don't seem to be facing much opposition. We don't know where Gaddafi is. They're recognized. They say they're going to open up the oil ports in September, and the big thing I've said before, the big thing I've noticed is you don't hear all the folks who were freaking out when Egypt was being overthrown. I say that charitably because the same generals who ran it before are running it now. They just have they don't have the same figurehead. But everyone was concerned about the what they call themselves, the Muslim group that was going to be running everything, and
the Muslim Brotherhood.
The Muslim Brotherhood, and so we're not getting a lot of that with this. I mean, I think it's great. It's you're going from one a dictator to an unknown quantity. I mean, it can't get any worse, I guess. Maybe it could. We'll see. But I think it's a good thing so far. And we're trying to get a Libyan Google Pluser to pick us up and come on the show, but that's hard. I guess if you think Emily has bad cell phone service, you should try Tripoli. All right, so Amazon is going to get in the tablet business, and now this started to break. I guess you saw a post. Where is it? Forrester Research put out something suggesting that they were going to sell 3 to 5 million tablets this year, and they're going to come out, I guess next month, with a tablet that's supposed to be hundreds of dollars cheaper than the iPad. It's going to be based on the Android operating system, which is the main competitor. The other operating system you'd see would be WebOS, which was HP's, which after literally days they exited the market and reduced the price from $4.99 to $99 is the street price, and they're selling well. I've been, as you know, I've been ranting about this repeatedly, that these things cost too much. I think the tablets are a neat thing that folks are going to want, and we'll see. We'll see if this price difference makes an impact. What do you think? I mean, you'd buy a $100 to $200 tablet in a minute, right?
Maybe not in a minute, but I think that, yeah, no, I'm sorry I'm moving around so much. I to grab my power cord for my incredibly large laptop. I think that the price is really going to matter. From what I've read, the estimate that it would sell 3 to 5 million is based on a price of under 300, which some people are saying is unrealistic based on how much money the Kindles cost. So we'll see. But if they are able to produce one for under 300, that could be a good thing for them. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully that's the case, and if not, I can see this just being another HP blunder.
I think there's, I don't know what the impulse price is. There's certain things you see in the checkout line as you're leaving, and there are certain costs, 99 cents or $2. You just buy it. You don't even think about it. Something that's $14 at a checkout line you wouldn't normally see there, and that is cause for pause, you'd think. But then other things, on a computer peripheral or computer device like a tablet, I'm not sure where that impulse, or I'm not sure where that price is. Apparently, they're selling like hotcakes at $99. The HPs, which are basically discontinued tablet with a questionable future, and a slow hardware put together on this device. So I don't know. We'll see. I still think that there's a tremendous potential to have these in everyone's home down the road, and they're going to get cheaper and cheaper, and eventually these things will be, $50, $80 or something at Walmart, and everyone's going to have them. And it's just the early adopters, like all technology, the early adopters are paying more. And the problem is that to make them cheap now, you'd have to subsidize them the way cell phones are, where a carrier would sign you to a 1-year or 2-year deal, and you'd get the thing free or for $99 or $150 with this 2-year term. The problem is these devices, the data plans are too much, and people don't really need them. You can, most people are just getting the Wi-Fi versions and aren't really getting data plans. So the subsidization in that case wouldn't make sense. So they really just got to figure out how to do it cheaper. And the more you sell, of course, it gets cheaper to build them. And I think that's what we're going to see. That's what's going on. Amazon, it should be, I don't know who, someone pointed this out, and it's obvious, but it's true. But Apple didn't invent these things. They didn't invent the phone. They didn't invent the tablet. They didn't invent the portable music player, but they did it better and brought it more mainstream and created the premium product that folks are willing to pay a little more for to get a good quality product. And it's shown tremendous success. In fact, each one tends, in a way, eclipsed the previous one. The iPhone eclipsed the need for an iPod because the iPhone would play the same music, so why do you need the second device? And then the tablet comes along, and to a large degree, you're using that for things you would have used your phone for. So he's not afraid, Jobs and Apple were not afraid to render into obsolescence a main successful product line by coming out with a new concept that's even better. So we'll see. I wish Amazon well. I think competition's great. You're seeing that with Google Plus and Facebook. Facebook, I logged in today, and I got these things that now when I post something, I can choose who to share it with, etc. That's clearly geared toward answering some of the popular features that Google Plus came out with from the beginning. So each time another major player comes out and builds on the success of the previous one, it's a good thing for the consumer, for technology. So this is an exciting time. Okay, so we've hit Libya and we've hit the tablets. Bowie in Vancouver told me that there's a law in Canada where you cannot use your cell phone you can't talk on the phone while you're driving. Now, I know some states, like in Virginia, you can't text anymore. At first, I think it was just young people, minors couldn't text or couldn't, what was it? They can't use a phone at all or something, depending on what age you are. But different states and countries have different laws. What do you think about the notion you straight up cannot talk on a phone while you're driving? Does that seem a bit extreme, or?
I'm torn about this one because most states that have put laws like that into effect, because I do think that there are a few states here that do that. They usually have there's part of the law is that if you have a hands-free device like a Bluetooth or some speaker system, like I guess that's the old school way of doing it, but they used to be able to hook a speaker into your car that would like a mic that would work like a Bluetooth, only with wires. I think that with that exception, I can see why that would be a reasonable law if the state really found that it was having trouble with accidents and safety on the road. But, it's, then again, I use my cell phone. I never text while driving. I do occasionally call, and, I do it when I'm driving on long, straight stretches of road and don't have to worry about making turns with one hand and stuff like that. But, I haven't gotten in an accident doing it. I'm sure there's plenty of people that haven't gotten in accidents using their phones. So it's a tough one, And I think that Canada's law went into effect in 2009, if I'm correct. So
I'm not sure. I know Bowie had an unpleasant experience with it in the last few days, but he's our guy from Vancouver who does our tech show. I don't know. I mean, different countries do different things, and I guess it is safer to not text while driving. It's safer to not have a passenger in the car. It's safer to not drink coffee while you're driving. That's a distraction. It's safer not to listen to the radio. And where do you draw those lines? I don't know. But it seems like I can't imagine being in a vehicle and driving like 3 hours like I do when I go to Lynchburg and not being able to call anybody, But
the hands-free technology really has come a long way. I think that you'd still be able to call people. You just have to, if Virginia did get one of those laws, which it doesn't have. I'm actually looking right now, and among the states that do have bans on handheld devices are California, Connecticut, Delaware, D.C., Maryland, Nevada, New Jersey. I mean, there's a lot of them. Let's see. It says, 9, D.C. and the Virgin Islands. But, it's... I think that you just get used to it. I know having a handheld device, if you're using it regularly, is not a huge deal. It's just a matter of spending that money to buy it initially, I suppose.
That's funny. In Nevada, you can swing by the casino and gamble on your way to the brothel to get serviced, but you can't use your cell phone in the car.
It is illegal to text in Virginia while you're driving.
Okay. All right. Well, so that's interesting in Canada. So you can't use your phone while driving. We'll see. I guess it's coming. They keep the laws. They never remove these laws. This is one of the things I think they should do. Is every law should be sunset. Every law should have a period of time that it's in effect. Nothing should be forever. And then they can go back, and the law will just go off the books automatically unless it is reviewed by a future legislature and redone. You know, why should we all be subject to the laws from legislators who have long since died of old age? You know, there's still laws in Virginia. The state code is the code largely revised in 1950 as amended, and everything's still in effect 61 years later. I think that virtually all laws should have a 5 or 10 year limit, and every minute the legislature is spending reviewing laws on whether to reenact them is a minute they're not spent creating new regulations and you know, damaging the country or the state or the locality with ridiculous rules. Speaking of ridiculous rules, let's talk about the Fish and Wildlife Service. Did you you read this article, right?
I did.
About the guitars. You want to give me a brief synopsis here? And this is something. I'm getting ready to rant, but I want you to intro it.
All right, hold on. I need to find my tab. So this is a mini rant, but have you ever found yourself in a situation where you just have too many tabs open?
There's a funny picture. There's a funny picture. You see this? It's on the internet. And you see a bunch of a browser with 50,000 tabs open, and I can't tell where the noise is coming from. Like you have some YouTube or some ad comes on, you can't get rid of it, especially in a work environment. But this is, if you're looking for this is on my Plus page. In fact, I'll find it real quick and I'll post it in the chat room. Again, we're in the chat room on Justin.tv. I'll find this sucker here. But basically, the Fish and Wildlife Service rated Gibson guitars in 2 states looking for wood. Mm-hmm. And it's a Wall Street Journal article, Guitar Frets, Environmental Enforcement Leaves Musicians in Fear. There's a couple good quotes. The basic gist of it, do you have it now?
Yep, I do.
Go ahead.
So basically, Gibson was using woods that, I don't know if outlawed is the right word, but yeah, woods that they shouldn't have been using. And the Fish and Wildlife Service must have gotten tipped off to this by someone. Ended up raiding their plants. I mean, I don't know. I know how Dan feels about this, and I'm going to let him rant on his edge in a little bit. But I want to say first that, if they're using endangered wood, they shouldn't be, period. I mean, they should know. I mean, Gibson is not a small company. They should have lawyers and people telling them not to do this. I'm really surprised that this would happen. I'm not surprised. Well, I'm impressed that the Fish and Wildlife Service would, actually have their stuff together enough to catch on to this, but I'm surprised that Gibson would do it to begin with.
Yeah, I'm gonna. There's a couple quotes that I'm gonna find here. Let me see here. I put it on my. I'm gonna look at the article or the little blog post. Every state has. I think most states, if not all, have a Fish and Wildlife Service. In Virginia, we have the Game and Inland Fisheries, which is fish and wildlife. In reverse order. I guess they have to come up with a slightly different name. But here's the quote. If you were the lucky owner of a 1920s Martin guitar, it may well be made in part of Brazilian rosewood. cross an international border with an instrument made of that now restricted wood, and you better have correct and complete documentation proving the age of the instrument. Otherwise, you could lose it to a zealous customs agent, not to mention face fines and prosecution. And then a professor of law told the Wall Street Journal, John Thomas speaking, he said, once upon a time we would have taken one of these vintage guitars on his travels, but now I don't go out of the country with a wooden guitar. This is just, this is insane. We have, there's too much money for these agencies, and this is the same outfit. Remember, I did a rant on this woodpecker girl, the 11-year-old girl who was at her dad's house, and the cat was eyeing and about to eat a baby woodpecker. So she rescued the baby woodpecker so the cat wouldn't eat it. And then a Fish and Wildlife special agent was at Lowe's, saw this, and the girl was presented with a $500 and some ticket, fine, whatever, from the Fish and Wildlife Service for transporting. So they're saying that the woodpecker was better off being eaten by a cat than by being removed from that situation and set free somewhere else. So it's just these people don't have any common sense. It just now I'm not for mowing down all the rainforests, right? I'm not for killing the dodo bird off, but I just I think this goes too far. Am I wrong, Emily?
I mean, my feeling on regulation is that whenever this topic gets brought up nowadays, it's either we need to get rid of all regulation or we need more regulation. And I really think there needs to be a happy medium. I mean, I get worried about people wanting to take power away from groups like, inland fisheries and wildlife, because there are regulatory industries, especially ones like these, that control. Okay, so the best example I can give is that, and I am from Maine, so I'm a little biased on this, but historically, the Maine lobster fishery was in decline, and there, because of overfishing and all the other reasons why other fisheries have fell over the years. And unlike the cod fishery in New England, the lobster fishery survived because of regulation and because the state agencies worked with the fishermen and, taught them more about the science of lobsters. And as a result, we have it's one of the healthiest fisheries in the world. It's cited often, and what they've done is become like a historical model. So, I mean, once you start talking about taking power away from agencies like this because of small, examples like the woodpecker, it really damages. I mean, we never talk about the good things that they're doing. This is another one of those situations where, they make a blunder and it becomes big news, and all of a sudden it's. So, yeah, I think that there needs to be a happy medium, and there needs to be intelligent discussion on agencies like this done by people that are familiar with them. And yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of bad bureaucracy that happens in these groups, but I'm sure there's also a lot of good things that happen as well. So.
Whatever.
Whatever. Not having you on the show again.
some of the planes land on time. That doesn't mean we shouldn't look at the crashes and deal with them when they happen.
That's a horrible. You just totally blew everything I said. Right? That's not. That's not fair. That's a bad analogy.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, why do we need 50 state Fish and Wildlife departments and a national one if they have enough money? They should go out and be arresting poachers or whatever. They shouldn't be hassling 11-year-old girls. And it's just they're too big. They're too bureaucratic. Why the hell does this lady have the power to give some 11-year-old girl a ticket for rescuing a woodpecker? It's just they're arrogant. They have too much power, too much money, and everybody in the whole system just approved it. Yeah. But everyone in the whole system approved it. The supervisor approved it. The state trooper's there when she gives the ticket to the lady. And nowhere at some point did someone say, this is stupid and you're an idiot for giving this girl a ticket. That's my point. And if the damn bureaucracy is so big and so self-important that nobody in the whole chain, from the State Troopers Department of Virginia, the Virginia State Police, to the Fish and Wildlife Service, to some, I hope some legal judge or some magistrate authorized it. If they can just mow people over and act like complete morons, and everybody, all the checks and balances either aren't there or don't, react to this, then we have a problem. And to just say, oh, let's keep it because they're saving the dodo bird or whatever, is baloney. We have to rein these guys in. We're spending too much money, and I think this is one department where we can look. It's just one example where they've had two idiots in a row. I mean, this is sort of like NPR getting zapped for I forget what for that guy meeting with the right wing guy and posing as some kind of militant Islamic guy who wants to give him money, and then they fired Juan Williams for saying what, I mean, who the hell wouldn't be upset if you're getting on an airplane and there's 6 young Arab guys with no luggage and one-way tickets glaring at you? I mean, who wouldn't be upset in that situation? And because of 2 idiots at NPR, then they're basically going to lose their federal funding. And so, and you can argue about whether that's right or wrong, whether those are isolated incidents that cast an unfair view on the entity as a whole, or whether finally something has come to light that displays the arrogance of the organization, and it's a good thing that happened, and that they get reined in. So I'm not sure where to, I think we're falling on opposite sides on this fish and wildlife issue on that point, whether these are illustrative or exceptional examples. And I think that's something honest people can disagree about.
Yeah, I think my only worry is that when this issue comes up, it's one thing to say we need to take a look at what regulations are being enforced, and we need to take a look at the bureaucracy. It's another thing to say this is not working, so we need to cut their funding. I mean, obviously when you take a look at the bureaucracy, part of that is looking at the efficiency of the system and finding places where you can pull the money out of people that are getting, overpaid for some things, and others that are doing 3 jobs and getting underpaid. I mean, every local government has problems like that. And that's when you bring someone in to look at it, instead of just taking departments like this and slashing their funding. Because then, if you don't actually take a look and solve these problems, like the woodpecker problem, you don't have, you just slash the funding, you're not telling that department, hey, stop doing the woodpecker thing and start catching poachers. I mean, that needs to be done. It needs to be done in a very conscious way, and it needs to be done by people who don't have a political interest in just slashing funds and making their budgets look better. Oh, and everyone in the chat room is getting mad because they think you're badgering me, and I'm a youth of some sort, but I'm not. I'm old enough to argue with Dan. Thanks, guys.
Am I being mean to Emily? I'm sorry.
No, I don't think you're being mean to me. I think
we're I'm engaging in vigorous, spirited debate to boost ratings.
Did you make Scott a moderator? That's
and you
cool.
too, yeah. This person here who's saying naughty things in chat can now be banned if necessary. I'm all for the First Amendment, right? I practice it as do you, but there's limits. We try to run a family-friendly program and chat room. Okay, so all right. So anyway, so we both agree the Fish and Wildlife Service is unnecessary and should be dissolved. Just kidding. Okay, Romney and Perry. What did Rick Perry? What's his new? First, he's going to secede, and but then oops, he meant like that they can split into states. But apparently at some point he said that Texas, when they joined the Union, because they were the Republic of Texas, that they reserve the right to leave it later, and that's not the case. And then now he's referring, and I guess it's a dramatic, graphic example, but he's referring to Social Security as an illegal Ponzi scheme, and to a degree it is. A couple stats: when we started Social Security, the life expectancy was 5 or 6 years. Now it's 18 years, and when we started it, I think it was 6 or 8 workers for every retiree, and now that's the opposite. There's 6 workers or 6 retirees for every worker contributing to the system. Now, these things fluctuate, because right now the baby boomers, we had the baby boom after World War II, when all the men came back from the war and did what men do and what women do with the men, and we had lots of babies afterward. And the economy was flourishing, and everyone figured they could have kids, and they were physically able to have kids because they were back together again after this long, drawn-out World War. And so now those folks are senior citizens. The first baby boomer president, I think, was Bill Clinton, and now they're in their 60s, 70s, so they're on Social Security. Also, the life expectancy is terrific with modern medicine. And so, but these things are cyclical. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at charts to know when this will level out, or if it will, or what the long-term prognosis is. But what's the deal? I mean, he's got a point, right? I mean, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, the language is obviously inflammatory and meant to be that way. But it was a good move on his part because he made headlines by doing it, and at this point in the race, that's probably the best thing you can do as long as your headlines aren't negative. But, I've been sure for a while that I will never see Social Security money. I mean, it's unlikely that it will live to, that I'll actually get my money that I'm paying into it back. And, it's a system that really needs to be looked at because it's not working financially like it was meant to. And, if kids like me are going to pay money into it, we'd like to know that, it's not just going to keep someone on life support. And I'm going to try to keep my language as not against old people as possible. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
We're talking Social Security, retirement. We're not talking Medicaid or Medicare.
No, but
to keep people plugged into life support. What are you saying?
Well, I mean, Social Security. If it's my feeling, being 25, and that's how old I am, by the way, is that I would like to see my money that I'm paying into Social Security now go into just about anything else. I mean, I'd love it to go into my college loans. That'd be great. Or even into, paying down the country's debt or just about anything. And it is hard paying into a system that probably isn't going to exist by the time you get to take advantage of it. So
the problem is that these things are taken out of your check. It's mandatory. And it's understood that you will get benefits once you reach the age of eligibility from Social Security, to get benefits based on the fact that you've paid in. And I think that you'd have a heck of a class action. I don't think they could legally just end it. I think you'd have a huge thing, and I don't think people would allow it. Old people vote. And I just, they probably should charge a little more, and they probably should raise the retirement age for folks, not if you're 60 to say, okay, now you have to wait 10 years, but if you're 20, 30, to raise it, deal's a deal for the older folks who are about to get in the system. But, if I had to wait an extra 5 years or something to say whatever, that's fine. But it's frustrating when they say that we can't afford this, and then we have all this money, for the woodpecker terrorists at the Fish and Wildlife Service. That's the problem. That's the reason the budget is. No, I'm kidding. It's the entitlement programs.
Hi.
So, if you had to choose between Mitt Romney and Rick Perry, what would you do?
That's a tough one. Romney's not on my good list, mostly because he's totally not taking responsibility for the decisions he made on healthcare in Massachusetts. And having lived in Massachusetts under his healthcare system for a year, I would love to see him give a valid answer on it. He's kind of brushed it off and kind of abandoned it in the same way that McCain abandoned a lot of issues when he ran 4 years ago. I was amazed at how flip-floppy he got. And I was a huge fan of McCain's back in 2000, I believe it was, when he first ran, and was really, I was bummed when he didn't get the nomination, but he was a completely different candidate when he ran for presidency. And I feel like Romney's doing a lot of the same things that he's changing. And granted, he needs to change on healthcare to get the votes and to get the nomination. And I understand that from a political vantage, but it's tough. It's a little tough being, almost being someone from the state he governed for so long, and for him to get flip-floppy on stuff like that is
There's
tough.
a big difference. There's a big difference. It was illustrated in the TV show The West Wing when they did some flashbacks in the beginning of season 2, when they flashed back to when the fictional candidate Jed Bartlett was the fictional president when he was a candidate, and it was really interesting. And there was a thing that he was freaking out because he didn't think he was ready to be president yet. He was running for president, largely because Leo McGarry talked him into it, but all of a sudden the stress was getting onto him because it looked like he might have a shot, and then it got better and better, and then finally he convinced himself he was ready, and he calmed down. But there's a big difference between the guy or the man or woman running early in the process and that candidate in the middle of the process, and then that candidate as it appears almost a foregone conclusion that they're going to get the nomination, then they're the nominee. You see a maturation process there, or you see someone falling apart. And in McCain 2008, we saw the latter. Two things that come to mind were his vice presidential choice, who I think she has strong values, etc. But I clearly was not ready to take over as president. Did not know basic things. Maybe one day will be, right? I don't know. She's young, and
unless she finds herself in another political position, I don't think that having a reality TV show and touring around the country gives you experience.
I mean, look, Fred Thompson, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Ronald Reagan. I'm not going to knock her for for making money, but I'm going to say that I don't think she was qualified or competent at that point in her career to assume the reins if something happened to McCain. I think there was a 1 in 5 chance that he would just die, during office or better. And the other thing was when he suspended his campaign, and this just came out in Dick Cheney's book, which is about, I think it's about to hit the stores, or it did, and it leaked. There's a great article on Politico about it, where he says that when McCain suspended his campaign, called the leadership back to Washington, and Cheney said it was awkward, that nothing really was accomplished, and it was just unnecessary, and what was the point of this? And he said at that point he seriously questioned the potential for the Republican ticket. And I think a lot of us stopped and what are you talking about? How can you be president of the United States if you can't chew gum and walk? I mean, right now, Obama and before him, Bush are dealing with 2 wars, an economic crisis, any number of things at the same time. And you can argue about who did or is doing a better job and all that. But, I mean, a president has to be able to multitask and has to have a competent staff around him. And I think that when McCain, in a series of moves during the campaign, illustrated very clearly that he was not up to the task and did not have a competent staff. Someone should have reined that in and said, this is stupid. I think all of his campaign staff's working at Fish and Wildlife now. That was a dig.
Aww.
Just then, that was a dig. Are we good on this? Are we good?
Are we good on
whatever
McCain?
we're talking about?
I don't know.
Mitt Romney,
Perry and
Rick Perry.
Romney.
The Mormon thing's not a big story right now. Remember the first time it was? They had everybody on there defending the underwear and all that stuff. That I heard that I think it was only on NPR that they have the special underwear that they wear to remind them of their sacrament or their Mormons have a. But I think I don't know. There's a bunch of politicians, right? Orrin Hatch is Mormon. Mitt Romney, of course, but there are a number of them, and But this went through. It's always anytime this the first one. John F. Kennedy, Catholic. That was a big deal. Do we want a Catholic president? And we haven't had one since. But yeah, I don't see. I guess that novelty's worn off. Just like it was funny. I guess he's Mormon-proof now because they asked all those questions the first time around, so it was old news. So this time they're not really talking about it. Like with Hillary Clinton, she was scandal-proof because we already. If she had been the nominee, she was scandal-proof because we already knew every possible thing that could be negative against Hillary, right?
It's true.
And so it's all out there.
The Clintons have led their entire lives in the political spotlight. So.
And now he's a statesman-like figure. It's amazing.
I think a valid point on why Romney's Mormonism isn't being brought up more is since over the last 4 years, the Mormon Church and the Christian right have teamed together, specifically in California, to work on different issues that they both agree on. So I think that there's less adversity on a political level there than there used to be. But that's just a theory. I mean, that could be completely wrong. They could totally not like each other. But if I had to guess, that would be why it hasn't been brought up more. That, and if Romney does actually get the nomination, I'm sure that the Christian right would much rather have him be president than Barack Obama. Yeah,
the nomination, I guess right now it's Rick Perry. I think is gone into, but it's still newness, right? He's in the lead, I think, and then there is Mitt Romney, and then the second tier. And I don't know if it's fair. I don't know if we had this conversation with you or who, folks. They'll say Romney and Rick Perry, and then they say and Palin and Bachman. And I don't really think they have a lot in common, except, I mean, they're both females, but I don't think that should group them. Am I wrong?
Palin's not running, yeah? Did I miss something? Did she say she was running over the weekend? I mean,
no, but when they discuss it, they say Palin or Bachman like they're almost identical, and we don't need both because, you know, one of them's Bachman is the woman in the race, so we don't need. I don't know. It's just funny because really they're not that similar. They're both conservative. I think Bachman is more religious right, and Palin is more, I guess, social and economic conservative, but not primarily motivated the way Bachman is.
No, see, I disagree with you on this. I think that Palin and Bachman's positions as far as the religious right are concerned are very similar. I mean, Palin was outspoken about, I mean, she hasn't been as active politically, but then again, her only political platform to be active was by being a governor of Alaska. So it's, I mean, you can argue that Bachman has done more for, you know, the right to live anti-abortion movement than Palin has, but I think that their positions are just as strong. And Palin was she was very upfront about being a member of the Christian right. So I think that making the point that because one is running, we don't need the other is not a good one. But I think drawing comparisons between their politics and the way they handle being a woman and a member of the Christian right and a politician is a very valid comparison. You know, it's a tricky issue, and I think that it's definitely worth discussion, at least from a woman's standpoint. I'm always interested to hear, you know, specifically the being, you know, submissive and subservient to your husband and running for president. I mean, it's a tough topic. So I don't know. Bring it on.
Okay, speaking of topics, I guess we're going to discuss the Lady Gaga. Okay, a bit of a segue here. I guess she was dressed as a man at the VMAs. Apparently, they were the highest rated ever. The MTV Video Music Awards. I don't have a picture I can use without YouTube freaking out on the show, but if you just Google Lady Gaga VMA man or something, she went as a man, and I guess it was awkward and got stale after a while. And then Beyonce, I guess, is pregnant. Good for her. And she showed off her baby bump. What this brings the Lady Gaga is a man thing. You know, someone was saying, folks would say, like Elton John comes to mind, or Madonna. Where every time you see Madonna during her heyday and now, it's a completely different look. It might be Queen Elizabeth, it might be a cheerleader, whatever, but different hairstyle, everything. Reba McEntire, to some degree, did that for different albums. And Elton John, I guess, is the big 1970s guy who would, you know, at the concerts wear these outrageous things. And all of these folks are extremely talented. There's no denying, even if Elton John or Madonna or Lady Gaga are not your cup of tea or favorite performer, there's no denying talent. And all three are extraordinarily talented. Elton John, I was talking to a guy at Washington Music Center that's a major music retailer. They're great. But he said, yeah. I said, why did he feel it necessary to do that? Because they're so talented. I think people would like their music anyway. And he said, yeah, but would he have been as big a star otherwise? And would people have paid attention to him? And it does draw that spotlight to you. And, I mean, these are big stars. Madonna, Lady Gaga, Beyonce. But Beyonce's very conservative acting. But then her video, you know, she's fairly racy, very attractive female. And her outfits, you know, show that. But not in a bad way. I mean, but, you know, she's aware of her attractiveness and does not wear a burqa. And so anyway, I don't know. I think this is just, they're always pushing the envelope. Is this any different from when Elvis, they wouldn't show him from the waist down because of his sexual gyrations on the Ed Sullivan Show, because of his crazy dancing that would whip teens into a sex-filled frenzy to see? Is this any different? It's just the 2011 version?
I mean, I'm going to preface this by saying that I am not at all a fan of Lady Gaga's music, but I do really respect what she does artistically. And I think that it really, to just dive into that, this is just a iteration of, you know, artistic expression, and she's obviously not doing it to make friends or like widen her audience or what have you. So it's you know, power to them. Whatever they want to do. If it wasn't for the artists in the world, you know, life would be boring and black and white. And we wouldn't be able to go to museums and see crazy, you know, crazy paintings and what have you. And on the other hand, we wouldn't be able to watch TV and see a famous entertainer look like a dude. So, you know, it makes life look more interesting.
She did look like a dude, and now they're saying she was ripping off Annie Lennox's 1984 similar performance, appearance, or whatever. I don't know. You know, she got the headline. That's what it's about, right? Getting the headline. Everyone's talking about her. We're talking about her on a show that would never talk about Lady Gaga. Yeah. But I don't think it's any different. I think that's the point. You know, what can I do to get attention to my brand so people will look at my product and buy it?
Now, here's a question. Would you compare Lady Gaga dressing like a man at the VMAs to Rick Perry calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme?
Yeah.
They both got headlines.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, if we did a highlight reel of this show to interest someone in advertising or carrying it, we would find something like when we were arguing about the Fish and Wildlife Service, right? You find the most controversial things, and you show clips of that, and it's the same thing. It's if when they show a promo of a show on MSNBC or Fox or CNN, they'll show someone, you know, their promo, you know, Senator, are you qualified to be president, or whatever, some kind of challenging question. That's what, you know, nobody wants bland. That's why Romney's not doing particularly well. And every week there's like someone else that comes along and steals his thunder. You know, I I mean, yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's showmanship. That's why these actors like Reagan and Schwarzenegger did so well and got elected. Sonny Bono, because they're known quantities and they know how to they know how to reach people. They're charismatic. When you see these guys, like I saw Jesse Jackson in New Orleans, the guy's like 7 feet tall. I had no idea. Marion Barry, same thing. A lot of these guys are tall men when you see them in person. And they have that kind of, I don't know, they kind of glow in the dark or something. They're just, they've got star quality and I guess they're used to being noticed and they get comfortable and they get good at it. And they say things. And these are all lines that are carefully crafted, and they're trying to get a message out. Another reference to Cheney's book, he said that he has a daughter, and they brought up her sexual orientation in the debates. He said he got really offended when John Edwards, his in their debate, or in the debate, brought it up, and then John Kerry brought it up in a debate, and he felt that was sort of a tag team approach to make it an issue. In some attempt to embarrass Dick Cheney, and that's sleazy. That was his view that's what they're doing, and but that's what they do. They try to find something controversial, and something that'll get noticed, and something that'll get talked about. And clearly, dressing as a man, sometimes it backfires, right? These weird moves, and one comes to mind is when Garth Brooks did his Chris Gaines album, some sort of alter ego, and it was just a disaster. Sometimes it doesn't work. It's risky. One time she came in an egg. They carried her in like Egyptian people carrying a god in or something, and she was in some egg going into the whatever show it was. I don't know. I mean, great. Kids like this stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure that she even does all this stuff for that reason. It definitely falls into just who she is and what she does. I don't know. I mean, she's obviously pulling from people. Really?
Oh, I think she totally knows exactly what she's doing, and she knows it'll get a rise out of people, and knows it's newsy, and she has to top whatever they did last year. And she's not Michael Jackson. She can't just go out there and do a song and dance and just be unbelievable. Michael Jackson could do it just with straight talent. He could dance better than anybody else. His songs are incredible. His sense of show, he could just put on a better show than anybody else could. And Madonna would do it with costumes and pushing the envelope with the cone boobs and weird things that she would do, or coming out in Victorian garb, that sort of thing. And then you've got to top that next year. Or they say it wasn't as good, and you get ridiculed, So when they say Lady Gaga, she's known for outrage and just crazy things, so she's got to be even crazier and more outrageous the next time. And then, then eventually it backfires, or you get in trouble. I mean, you don't want to get a review like the two who hosted the Oscars and got panned because they were bland. But then you go in the other direction, and But I think she knows. If you watch the 60 Minutes, that's really interesting. Anderson Cooper's interview with her about fame and things like that. Really good interview. Really interesting. I think she knows exactly what she's doing, and she's on. She got talked about, and she made the top of Drudge, and she's got her next 5 minutes of fame, and it continues. And she's a talented. Some of her songs are good, and. She's, I don't know. She's getting fame. She likes it. I think she likes being in the news. She likes being on the TV, I think. All right. Well, anything else, Emily? Are we good?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Hey, that was awesome. Thanks. Emily Williams is the senior political writer at the Lynchburg Times newspaper. You can catch her and all of her wonderful writing at lynchburgtimes.com. She also has a Google Plus profile, and that is available at her quick URL. Just go to gplus.to/EmilyKW. Emily KW. I'm Dan McDermott. My Google profile is at gplus.to/McDermott, and I'll be back tomorrow night with Brett Herbeck with another edition of McDermott Report. Thanks so much for watching.